Today, guys, I'm going to share with you my 10 failures when I started filming and the steep learning curve I went on. And in this video, you can learn from my mistakes. Let's jump into lesson one, and that's cameras. Cameras. I didn't obviously start with this camera. Let's just stop recording on this. I started with a Sony a6500, and it was a YouTube video which did it for me. iFondo. He was talking about the new Sony a6500, and I was like, what is this camera? This looks amazing. And it was the autofocus feature of it which really drew me to that camera. But at that point, I thought, I'm going to get this. And this camera was just something from the future. Literally, he walked up to it and the focus stayed on him. But it's not just those cameras this video is going to cover. It's going to cover this. All the principles today I'm going to talk about will apply to an action camera, to the Pocket 3 camera as well. So I went out and bought the Sony a6500. My first sort of lesson to you is do a bit of research, look into the type of camera you want. I never thought it'd be a Sony, but there was a real turning point, which I'll come back to later in this video, which really gave me some real steep curve learning lessons. And that is why actually filming. So when you get your camera, go on YouTube, learn it inside out. Lesson 2, lenses and crop sensors. Now, we are now currently using full frame cameras like the FX3, the FX6, like I'm recording here. And just a bit of education, a crop sensor is smaller than a full frame. So if you go and buy, let's say, a 30mm lens, if you're using it on a crop sensor, it's going to be times 1.4, the equivalent of around about a 45mm lens. And my first camera, as I said, the a6500, I went and bought 2 lenses. I went to a camera shop and I said, what would you recommend? I plan on filming interiors and talking pieces. And they said to start off with, go for a wide, which was a 16mm Sony lens. And then I went for a zoom lens as well, which was I believe a 24 to a 105mm lens. I thought, good, great reach. But what they failed to tell me was about the crop sensor. It paid off in some ways. I could zoom in quite far, but it was an f4. It wasn't until I was filming with it I realized actually how useless an f4 is unless you want most things in focus. The low light capabilities of an f4 with a crop sensor were pretty dire, and it introduced a lot of noise, ISO noise, which I'll come back to in another lesson. But it was just a horrible experience. Unless I had perfect lighting conditions, it just wasn't suitable. And I spent £2,500 on it. And I would say that do some research into lenses. You need a range of lenses. And I was so focused on just getting the right lens. I had no idea about prime lenses. I had no idea about zoom lenses. I just went on some advice in the shop. So lesson 3, once you've got your camera, you're then obviously going to learn about it. And if you want to, do those extra special things with it where you push it to the max and take it to full manual mode, is shutter. Now, I really mucked up on shutter, but my biggest lesson in shutter was when I came to film some yoga, hot yoga. And I was in this room and I was like, oh, this is great, great video to film. But what I didn't notice, because I was just using a small little screen on my camera, a6500, was there was some vignetting happening. And it was like this bead coming down on it. And I was like, what is this? I didn't notice it when I was filming. I was filming a higher frame rate, so I could slow it down. And there was this vignetting coming across. And I was like, right, I could kind of get away with it, color adjusting, it got rid of it. And I was able to provide this final piece of edit, which the client didn't even notice this slight vignetting going across. It was very subtle. It wasn't until probably about a month later, I got asked if I could do some filming for a music video at this recording studio, which was close by. And it was at night. and they had staged it with all these lights and stuff. And I thought, this is brilliant. I'm going to record a music video. And it was there I met my friend Sam, and I explained to him about this shutter problem. And he then first explained to me ever, because I didn't know to YouTube it or Google search it, was the whole rule of the shutter. So the rule goes, if you're filming at 25 frames per second, your shutter should be double or close to. So your shutter should be set at 50. This helps with lights, with the flicker coming through, all sorts of different things. But also, shutter helps with that whole motion blur side of things. If I had a high shutter right now and I did this, my arm wouldn't get blurred out. It would stay in focus and it looked jarring. So the lesson here for the shutter is, if you're filming at 25, double it to 50. Now, I will admit something to you. Before I understood NDs, which is another lesson coming up, is I used to up the shutter outside because it was too bright. So I couldn't keep the shutter low. So I upped it really, really high. But really, the lesson here is, practice filming inside, practice filming outside in bright conditions, in all different conditions. Shutter was a very steep learning curve for me, and I really don't want it to be for you, especially if you're doing paid work. Lesson 4 is ISO. ISO is something which I was obsessed with, making it as the lowest number possible, and I still am a bit. If you don't really know what ISO is, this is where noise and pixelization can come into it. And I was so scared of ISO for such a long time. It wasn't until I was filming in a low light situation did I realize, wow, the higher that ISO goes, the more noise really comes into it. With any camera, you'll understand the top limit of that ISO. Like the FX3, I believe, goes to 1600 before you see any sort of noise creeping. The FX6, which I'm filming with, we've whacked that up all the way to 2000 ISO and you haven't seen that noise in. It will depend on the sensor size, it would depend on your light conditions, it would depend on a lot. But ISO was definitely another steep learning curve for me, and I really can't stress this enough. I'd love you just to go away, do some tests on how far you can push that ISO before the noise comes in. And a bit of noise coming into your camera is absolutely fine. It will come down to the circumstance of what you're filming, whether it's a video blog or you're doing some client filming. Before we dive into lesson 5, let me tell you a bit about myself. I trained as a graphic designer. I used to do a lot of 3D visualization, so virtual world, understanding everything around you. And then I decided to go and get a drone. And from that point onwards, I fell in love with filming. But where did I go to learn this filming? YouTube. So this is my way of kind of giving back to you guys. I learned everything I needed for filming from YouTube. I didn't go to university, I didn't study it. Everything comes from YouTube, and that's why I'm making this video. I just want you to save some time and some crucial lessons. So lesson 5 is microphones or audio. You go and buy your camera like I did, and I didn't even consider audio until I got asked to film an intro video. I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'll YouTube that. Lav microphones. The best thing for talking pieces. This is my first lav microphone, and it was from Rode. And look how bulky that is compared to what you get now from DJI. Very, very tiny. It's miniaturized, which is brilliant. Naively enough, I just literally plugged this into the camera, put it on the talent, and off we went. But what didn't I do? I didn't monitor it at all. And I didn't monitor the audio because the Sony a6500 didn't have an audio monitoring jack. It just had a jack to put in the audio, but to not monitor it out. What I mean by that is obviously headphones or something like that, so you can actually hear what's going on. I got asked to record some talking pieces to camera for corporate video. So I put the microphone on, but worse yet, I put it underneath the top. And it wasn't until later on, I didn't actually edit this video. In fact, my client came back to me and said, Andy, we have a bit of an issue, but don't worry. I've got a background in cleaning up audio. And I was like, oh my God, what's the issue? Because how I monitor the audio without hearing it was the meters on the camera. As long as it didn't get to the top, I knew it wasn't peaking. I was like, we're good to go. But we won. What turned out was that there was rustling coming from the shirt, the jacket. And if you place this inside, all this rubs against something and that creates rustling. And I tell you what, I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. But then I watched YouTube videos on this subject, and not one point of any of the videos, I must have watched about 10, 12 videos on where to place a lav microphone, how to place it, how to hide it, was the rustling at all. So what I did was, obviously, I thought I need to use an external recorder, and that's what I did. And then I monitored it. When you get some new kit, learn it, practice it. Even if you're recording videos for YouTube, you don't want to record a whole YouTube video and realize there's rustling going on. It's going to be a bit like there's a hamster under your desk or a guinea pig or something like that. Lesson 6 is going to make you laugh. When I got my camera, I didn't even consider lighting. Like, all this has been built up over years. And again, I returned to YouTube and I went, right, I want to do some content creation for my graphic design business, and I want to talk to camera. What light shall I use with a cheap budget? I can't remember the YouTuber's name. All I remember is that he was Australian, and he said, if you're starting a YouTube channel, go get this lighting. And I went, okay, I'll go do that. And this is the lighting. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you know anything about lighting, you want it to flatter you. So currently I have a softbox light here with a grid on it, which creates a nice flattering look. This does not. I went and bought 2 of them. To give you an idea, this is £20. You pay for what you get. If I switch this on now, it's got a battery in it. Oh, it's really, like, you can see how bright that is. It is not a flattering look. It's not a soft light. And I kind of knew straight out of the box that it didn't work. I put them up in the corners of the room and I had to max out the brightness, and then it created harsh shadows on me. And what I didn't do was stop and think, right, this isn't working. Send them back to Amazon and invest in the next level up. And I'm not talking aperture level, you know, spend £1,000 on the light and you're going to be paying it off for a couple of months. I ended up investing in my first softbox, which was about £50 umbrella basically, and I ended up buying a 60-watt light, which I'm still using now. I've got a number of them, which just creates, you attach it together. Investment was total around about, I think about £150, and that created that soft look. So the lesson to take away from my lighting is that don't go cheap. Don't go stupidly expensive, but just don't go cheap. Watch some of these videos, like this video here, do some more research, and go and buy something which will be quite universal for you. Before we jump into lesson 7, just a quick shout to our first ever member on our YouTube channel, and that's Halil. Thank you so much. You subscribed, you joined our membership on day 1, and myself and the team, thank you so much. I just hope I've said your name properly. Please comment below if I haven't. Lesson 7 is ND filters. Biggest mistake I ever made was that. It was actually on a commercial shoot, and we're doing some filming for an accountancy firm. And we turned up there, and I had bought ND filters, but we didn't have them. So I thought, I don't need ND filters. I'll just open up the f-stop, whacked it all the way up to 16. And I was like, that's great, fine. Got it balanced, got the frame rate right, got the shutter right. I just whack up the f-stop on the lens. And good God, what we saw when we came back to the studio was, I wanted to cry. We got back, loaded up the footage. My colleague Rob was getting on with it, and I just popped to the toilet. I come out and he said to me, we've got a problem. And I was like, oh no, what's it, the SD corrupt? He said, no, it's fine. There was dust on the lens, and that was these little dots appearing during the point where our client is talking to camera. We had kind of like the perfect scenario. We had bright light, shut the f-stop right up, and there was micro dust particles on the lens. You couldn't see it on your eyes. You couldn't see it whatsoever. There's another lesson I'll come back to when I talk about it later, is that when you're looking at a tiny screen, you can't see those little details. And I was like, well, how do we resolve this? Well, it was painstaking. In editing, I had to mask out all those little dots. That is why NDs come into play. Now, if you're outside, I'd highly recommend a variable ND, especially if you've got clouds. You can quickly adjust that and do all those different things. So, big lesson. Invest in some NDs for your lens, and invest in, bonus here, some step up rings if you've got different lens sizes. So you can just use one ND filter on all your different size lenses. Lesson 8 is stabilization. What I mean by this is, how stable is your camera when you're filming? I had another moment where I couldn't use any footage, and now I'm talking, this is actually back in the day before I even invested in a camera. I had just a drone, and one of my clients I was building a website for turned around to me and says, I want to shoot a music video outside. I was like, yeah, cool, I'll be up for that. Have you got a camera we could use? And he said, yes, got a camera. And I think it was a Canon, and I'm talking about, it was probably, the camera was about £200 or £300. I was like, yeah, that's fine. I know what I'm doing. I didn't at all. The situation was this. We're in this rose garden for some reason, and we had the talent. She sat on a bench and she was singing to the camera. I'm not going to sing. I'm a bit like Happy Feet. I can't sing, but I can sort of dance. Anyway, I digress. I was filming her and I was like, yeah, this looks great. Got back home, loaded the footage up, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, just wanted to cry. Even though I was holding this camera very steady, you could see the shakes. And because I was quite close to the talent, she was filling the screen up. Her face was more or less filling the screen up to get that emotion. And it was shaking, and not a good shake, not like purposeful like you see in films. It was just awful. And that is because the camera didn't have IBIS in it. RFX3s and most cameras now, if you spend a little bit of money, have IBIS in it. In-body stabilization, basically. That is a big lesson for you. If you're going to hold your camera there, you need IBIS just to stabilize it out. Otherwise, it's very jarring. I then went down another rabbit hole. I was a bit like, right, if I'm ever going to do this again, what do I need? A gimbal. I have had now, to date, round about, I don't know, 12, 15 gimbals. These are relatively cheap now, around a couple £100 for a gimbal that will create a lot of other great stuff for you as well. You can do lots of stuff with it. So lesson here, if you're moving, just check the stabilization of your camera. Throughout this video, I have mentioned a number of times looking at a small screen. Looking at a small screen is great. It's kind of like, I realized I was being lazy in the early days. I was like, it's got a screen on it, I can see everything. But when you're monitoring anything, just like how I didn't monitor my audio, adding stuff will help you a lot and save you possibly a lot of problems down the line. And what I mean is literally a monitor. Get a larger screen. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be color accurate, but you can see what's going on there. You can possibly see those dust particles. You make sure everything's focused and on point. You know, you can get one for around about £70, £80, and you can see really what's going on. Yes, there's a bit more setup, but I can tell you this, it is worth every penny, because nothing worse than getting back or after recording your video and you realize I'm not quite in focus. And if you are using something like, I might as well just leave this out on the desk, an Action 5, you can actually use your phone to monitor it as well, which really helps with your whole setup. Lesson 10, color. In the early days, I was like, right, I've set all my settings on my camera. Great, it's going to do what I need to do. But if you want to take it any further like myself and really play with those colors, you need to understand a bit about Kodak. With a camera like the Sony cameras or the FX3, they will film in certain colors. Like 420 is the standard. Now 420 is the amount of colors which you're going to record. But if you really want to max it out, you've got to take it to 422 10-bit. Now, I've mentioned this in some of my YouTube videos, is go for the highest setting you can on your camera, because you will thank me later. Because if you go to, say, 420, which is a minimal amount of colors, you can't bring back some of the overexposure. You can't bring back some of those shadows. If you go to 422, you can, and you've got a lot more color science there to play with. We have a fine balancing act here at the studio that if we're recording anything in the studio where all the lighting conditions are absolutely fine, we will still record in 420. There's no need to push it to the full lengths, because we know what we're doing. We know where it's going to go. It's going to go on social media, so it doesn't matter so much. But if we're recording like a higher end video production, we will push it to 422, 10-bit, throw everything at it, so that when it comes to the edit, we've got a lot to play with. I'm not quite done yet. I've got a bonus 11th lesson for you, and that is just keep learning. This is something which took me a while to get around. Once I knew all I needed to know about the camera, and I was like, great, know it all. But there's always something to learn. This is more of a bit of an advice for you. When you're recording videos, whether it's content creation for YouTube or video blogging, review what you've done. What's that 1% you could change next time, slightly improve on? This will help you as a creator just to get better and better and better. I do this all the time. I hope those lessons helped, and it's going to save you valuable time and money in your content creation. Now, YouTube has selected a video you may well like from our channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll catch you soon. Got questions? Drop them in the comments.